cover what we love and hate to see in resumes. There will be some videos from our employer partners to give you advice from graduate recruiters and HR professionals. So hopefully we can share some good insight with you. And feel free to ask us any questions. We actually highly encourage that.
Yeah, we like that. We like talking to people. So yeah, we're recruiters, and but people like us do tend to love to chat to people. So. All right, what I love and hate to see on a resume from Macquarie Student Employment. The key to connecting you and your skills to the job described in the advert. Let's go. This is a little bit at the time, and we do have an addition, which is Michael, who started today, so we might as well put him in the hot seat as well, and is a current student of Macquarie. I have to also mention that Sara and Sina are both alumni. So yeah, I like to recruit from you guys and hopefully give you a pipeline of a career, somewhere to launch. Okay, session is being recorded. That means that Mel can't swear. Next. Okay, acknowledgement of country. Oh, every time I do this, I start with
There's some, yeah. I've had some practice in pronouncing the words, so let's see. All right, so we have to do an acknowledgement of country before our presentation. So we acknowledge the traditional owners of Macquarie University land, the Wurundjeri clan of the Nauru Nation. We pay respects to the elders, knowledge holders who have and continue to share their wisdom, knowledge, in nurturing and sustaining our environment, culture, and education.
See, he just does it like he's done it a billion times.
That's because I have done it a billion.
Next. Workshop learning objectives, why are you here? And I thank you very much for sharing, hi, how you going? For your time with me today and just to learn a little bit around our resumes. Just to give you a bit of background in this, I did reach out to some key Macquarie Student Employment partners. I did some meetings with them and had direct conversations, which I recorded and I brought them along to share today, so that's part of it. So this workshop you will learn how to build and review your resume, ensuring that what employers love to see is detailed on your resume. At the end of the workshop, you will know what an employer looks for in a resume, the pitfalls to avoid on your resume, and how to show your employability and cultural fit on a resume. Just to give you a little bit of background, I always feel like if you have a little bit of depth behind, you can understand what to put in things. So when you submit a resume, generally there's 3 points of review. The first one is that you put it into a recruitment system, an applicant tracking system. That's the first point of review. That can be just through keywords, or maybe it's just checking your spelling. They can be coded to do all sorts of stuff. The next one most likely is going to be a person within the talent acquisition team, and then it would get through to a hiring manager. So before you even get shortlisted, there's 3 points where you've got to kind of jump through a little bit of a hoop, and this is, I guess, the key to why it needs to be good. Why is it important to hit the mark in the first glance? Your resume will need to pass through each one of these reviews to provide you with an opportunity to present yourself in an interview. The recruitment industry average time for reviewing a resume is 6 seconds. Now, if you Google that, it's pretty much everywhere all over the internet. But I do have a little video on apparently Jade's more generous, so let's go. So BDO are major recruiters in the accounting and operations space. Probably a tier 2 behind one of the big ones, the EYs. So let's listen to Jade.
Definitely. So I love seeing a resume that is no longer than 2 pages. Anything longer than that is a little bit too much. Statistically, recruiters only really look at your resume for 30 seconds. So more than 2 pages, you're taking a lot of time.
There you go. I think you heard the frustration when she says it takes too much time to find. I move on. Okay, next one.
Yeah.
So make sure, what are we going to, the key takeaways, make sure your resume is easy to read. No big bulky paragraphs, instead use short sentences mixed with bullet points, clear section titles and headers. Resume formatting is important because recruiters skim through your resume. They don't actually read it properly. They're just seeking out keywords to move you through to the next phase. Resumes with good spacing and lots of bullet points would help the recruiter quickly gather that information. I'm a big fan of white spaces as well as definitely a part around those bullet points. Note if the resume seems difficult to read or understand, the reader may become impatient and move on to another candidate. So bearing in mind that you've got obviously a technical system that's reviewing your resume and then you've got two people, don't just write for the keywords for the applicant-to-applicant system. Remember to write it also for somebody who's going to read it. Maybe even get a friend to read it out loud back to you, and if it doesn't sound right, reword it, rethink it. Okay, so now we're going to listen to Jo. Jo recruits in the area of mostly education and special needs support.
Thanks, Mel. Definitely what strikes me is a really well-formatted resume. Grammar is particularly important, as well as being really clear of your qualifications and any experience you have relevant to that field. In terms of relevant experience, volunteering within that field is really exciting for me to see because it really demonstrates your passion within that resume. Speaking of passion, I really like that resume to come to life. So I'm particularly interested in any interests, hobbies, or even strengths that you may like to list. So it really means that that resume has a person behind those words on that piece of paper.
Okay, move on to the next one. Okay, so again, Jo pointed out, well formatted, back to those bullet points and white space, attention to grammar, clearly listed qualifications, volunteering, she loves to see that, and actually most of them do. It was definitely one of my ones where that gave me a little bit about the culture of the person, not just functional, and I sort of said a little bit about what they like to do. Interests and hobbies and strengths. Now, how you capture strengths, use examples of where you've used your strengths. Don't turn around and say, I'm awesome at this. You somehow plug in examples of how you've used those strengths. Okay, Sara Gooding is the Organisational Development Manager for Stockland, just down the road here. These guys recruit everything from ops staff, marketing, sales, business development, town planners, because they do shopping centres, they do big build whole community, so it's a pretty big unit, this one, and they do really have a lot of jobs on.
For me, less is more. So for a graduate, I think 1 to 2 pages on a resume should be completely sufficient. And it's about choosing the most relevant, most important information to put on there and not feeling like you have to fill it with every single thing that you've ever done in your life. So less is more would probably be my first tip. The second one for me, when someone is describing what they've done, their work experience, I think people tend to naturally list the tasks that they do, and it ends up looking a little bit like a position description. So you kind of describe the inputs, the things that you do every day. But what I really love to see is what you've achieved. So you're talking a little bit more then about the outputs. And you can do that no matter what job you've had. So maybe if I give you an example. So I used to work in a clothing store when I was a student. I bought too many clothes from that store, but that's a different topic of conversation. So I could have written on my resume, I man the fitting rooms and I work behind the till and I greet the customers, so all of the things that I do. But what's really cool to see as an employer is what did you achieve when you were doing that job? So instead, I might write about the achievements instead. So I might say, I asked to learn about the cashing up process because I wanted to build my financial skills, or 1 month I was the second best upseller of whatever it was, so I was helping to boost sales. So those kind of things I think help to set you apart a little bit more. If you describe what you did, you kind of just end up looking the same as everybody else who's done that job. So that would be my second tip. Try and talk about what made you a bit different.
Yeah,
definitely more goals.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I agree. That's
They're great tips. I love that example too. And you didn't mention one of your goals was to not spend too much money in the
The third one I think is probably the more difficult one, but love to try and see a little bit of personality on a resume if possible. It is a bit more difficult to do when you're writing a short document like that, but maybe you have a few sentences or a paragraph at the beginning that's kind of about me, and just spends a little bit of time writing about who you are, what makes you uniquely you, the kind of things that you enjoy, maybe what's important to you in a role that you're looking for, or some strengths that you can bring. It doesn't have to be very long, but write in full sentences and maybe try and be a little bit less formal, or write a little bit more the way that you would speak so that someone can see some personality coming out. I mean, I'm a bit of a sucker for some nice formatting, so I definitely would have a preference to see a PDF resume rather than a Word one.
Do you like photo?
Oh, actually, I don't mind actually with a photo. I mean, we try and sort of be really unbiased when we're looking at resumes, and try and look at sort of, I guess, the capabilities that people are bringing, rather than so much, I suppose, trying to build too much of a picture of who they are in other ways. So I actually think maybe a little bit of mystery without a photo I might prefer, and just sort of see a little bit more in black and white what it is that you'd be bringing to the table. Yeah.
So,
I think she raised a really good one, right? So more and more we're seeing photos on resumes. I know what I did. And actually a part of, so just a little bit of history about me, I did 4 years as the head of talent acquisition for New South Wales and ACT at Bunnings. My last and most recent role, I was the head of talent acquisition for Henkel, the Global Forbes 500. So that was for Australia and New Zealand. And I quite frequently got asked by senior leaders to make sure that I submitted blind CVs to hiring managers. What that meant is I had to actually go on to CVs and black out names, photos, anything that could create some form of unconscious bias. So I think when you are submitting a CV, I keep it to the facts and don't provide things that potentially could create bias. So I think that's, I think most people do try really, really hard, especially the HR people. But yeah, it's better just to keep it off, I think. They can look, we've all got LinkedIn profiles now once you get an actual professional level. So they want to go and see on more, there's more there to see, right? But your resume, I think, should be purely about a written document that had facts and information about you. Yeah. So, key points, keep succinct and precise, relevant. Functions are great when relevant, but great to see achievement and outcome, so show goal orientated. I think that's a really key one. I think one of the things around that culture piece is that when I was recruiting, that if I had a resume that somebody had achievements on, I knew that they were goal driven. Right? If they didn't have any achievements on the whole document anywhere and it was purely functional, I was a little bit, well, maybe they're a little bit more functional driven. And look, organisations need both, but if you want to be seen as goal driven and target orientated, that's the way to go. Sound like you, be authentic, clear formatting. Photos can create unconscious bias, so it's best to avoid them. Okay, so Emma Conti, she is the graduate recruiter for Schneider Electric, just over here. These guys take on lots and lots of grads in all different spaces, lots of industrial type areas, operations, finance, marketing. The reach is quite wide.
For me, I like the most important thing is to open a resume, and within 6 seconds I want to know your name, your mobile number, your email address, what you've studied, and any relevant work experience. So it needs to be super clear, really easy to open, and just get the information that you need straight away. There's probably nothing more frustrating than trawling through 300 resumes and having to scroll to find the information that you need on hand, which is usually education, mobile number, email address, and stuff. Real work experience, really highlight any work experience and volunteering. We really love to see that. Avoid chunks and paragraphs of information, maximum 2 pages. But yeah, just really clearly being able to see what you've done, what you've studied, and who you are. anything that's not overly related to the role or if you've done something that's so left of field, some of it's sometimes relevant, but just really be careful about how much information you're really putting in there. Sometimes an overload and just so much information, words on one page is just really overwhelming and sort of frustrating when you, as I said, going through 300 resumes. So.
Yeah, so 6 seconds, right? She just reinforced it. So she would come from a high volume environment, which is what I've done, where the BDO lady, she would come from not so high volume. Hiring accountants is not really considered that high volume stuff, but these guys would do very high volume. Clear, concise details, name, mobile phone number, address, email address, make sure you hyperlink it straight back through so that they click on it and off it goes. Qualifications nice and clear, and relevant experience. You have some great points. Okay, so I don't know if anybody's seen, but at the moment Nancy has been recruiting for the graduate program for Arnott's. Yep, you get to eat Tim Tams until you go get sick, basically. She did offer some, we could get her to bring some over. But Nancy recruits in everything: supply chain, accounting, finance, operations. She does physiotherapists, chiropractors. She has a whole unit of occupational type therapy that support their return to work programs for people that get injured. So yeah, huge. HR, let's have a little hear what Nancy's got to say.
I think anyone that's been able to, number one, showcase their achievements. I think that's really the crux of particularly as a student or a graduate coming into the workforce. What have you actually achieved? Not just, in the workplace, if you do have some work experience, but academic achievements. And I see positive signs of leadership. A lot of us talk about, developing leaders for tomorrow. So aligning that with people that are really, going out there and looking at obtaining leadership opportunities. Either through their sports club. Make sure it's really clear what degree you've actually completed. And in particular, I love knowing about what majors you may have completed. Sometimes even including some of the major projects that you may have worked on. It gives us further insight into, what some of your capabilities might actually be.
She raised some good ones, didn't she? Achievements. Now, this is one of the ones that I always found that, I get graduates into an interview and I'd say, tell us a little bit about yourself, but walk me through some achievements. And they look at me as if like, I'm a graduate, I've got none. Well, you have. Everybody has. So whether it be just saying, look, the proudest moment was that day I actually walked down and I graduated. Maybe that's it. So what they're looking for is your drive and your motivators, right? So they're not actually, there might be that you turn around and did a 100-kilometre walk and you did it and raised money for something. That still can be your achievement. It can be personal. So reflect on things that you see as achievements. Don't think, it could be a project that you did with your mechanical engineering group and you redesigned this building and maybe it inspired it to become a real building. As you're a student, but it inspired something to become real. There's always those little achievements. So achievements not only show, again, goal-driven, goal-orientated, but also a little bit about what drives you and motivates you. Employers nowadays are really, really keen to know that up front. So they want to know how to get you to be your best self and how do you to work at your best level. Okay, graduate and student recruitment is high volume. You do fall into that. You all sort of come out in big batches at a certain time. So help recruiters get to the information they need really quickly. I think that's the key. We're going to chat about the hate to see, and I don't want to put a downer on it. We did the love, well now we'll go for the hate. So things on your resume that, will ensure that you don't make it to the next stage. You'll just automatically get rejected. It's great to know these because I think that, it's a great way to avoid something if you know what it is, right? So let's have a little look at some of those. So Melissa Hyland, so Ipscates is a cloud-based software organisation, so we're talking tech.
So my 3 pet peeves would probably be spelling mistakes, grammar issues. I would also say the lack of or the non-attempt to demonstrate relevancy to the role that you're applying for. And the third one, gaps in work experience and the non-explanation as to why.
Okay, all good stuff. So, spelling errors and grammar again. Not linking anything relevant. Notice I've got a couple of cats. Absolutely not relevant to this topic at all. So I thought it was pretty appropriate. Unexplained gaps. If you travelled for a year and you took a year off, make sure you mention it. If for some, and just put, travel. So again, put a little bit more on that if you want. But if you maybe were a carer for a family member, mention that. Right? So just trying to close those gaps a little bit. Generally, employers just kind of want to see that you've actually dealt with the gaps. So if you're sitting next to somebody in the CV pile, that one person's got absolutely no gaps and they've got a nice flow in some sort of baseline career or studies, and the other person hasn't, has got gaps, they will go the other way every time because like, well, why? Why did they leave it off? What is that? What happened there? So it creates questions. Okay. Jade, back to Jade again.
So people who mistype their phone number is definitely number one. When I call you to screen you and I can't get through, it's a little bit hard for me to want to kind of chase you around. Pictures, we definitely want to remove any unconscious bias on a resume. So yeah, definitely no pictures on those ones. And then spelling and grammatical mistakes. I'm a bit of a grammar.
Okay, so again, those spelling and grammatical mistakes. With a consistent thing, unconscious bias again, remove it. Things that you think could create unconscious bias, definitely remove it. Typing errors. Now, look, you know what? I reckon possibly 1 in 10 CVs I got had either an incorrect email address or an incorrect email number on it. And basically, what happens with the applicant tracking system, as soon as it hits, if it's a email address that isn't recognised, it goes straight to the reject pile. If there's a number missing off your phone number, it will frequently go straight to the reject pile. So check, double check. I get shocked at how much this happens. Okay, common themes. Let's just snap through it. Proofread grammar, sentence structure, formatting, punctuation, spelling, capitalisation. Don't write everything in big caps, and I would avoid acronyms or be careful of acronyms. I find with them, with acronyms, what can be relevant in one industry may not be the same in another industry. It might mean something totally different. Also, different organisations use different acronyms. So if you do your research in the organisation, you learn a little bit about them on LinkedIn, you see some great acronyms, make sure you write what the words are and then pop it in brackets or whatever. So just make sure that it's fully written out as well, just to cover yourself if for some reason you've learnt it off a competitor that you're applying for and it's not applicable, right? Ensure your mobile number has an active voicemail. So we talked about the number being incorrect. The other area where I would automatically reject a candidate is if I've rung twice or 3 times, or somebody on my team has, nobody's picked up. It's probably come through as a no number because I don't normally give out my mobile any number, and nobody picks up and they don't have a voicemail that I can leave a message. I can't chase you. It's not going to happen. And I'm not going to send you a text message either. Can't expect that, especially from high volume recruiters. That's not going to happen. So basically, if you are out there actively applying, make sure you've got all the tools set up to make that so that they can connect with you. Get a friend to read your resume out loud. If it sounds funky at any time, they sound like they're falling over the words, definitely reread it, recheck it. Hyperlink to your email and make sure you test it. As I said, high volume, make it easy for them. You're applying for a professional role, create a LinkedIn profile and connect it by hyperlink to your CV. So if at that stage in your career where you're setting up your LinkedIn page, make sure that there's a hyperlink going through, but B, make sure it mirrors your resume. So don't have on there that you worked for I don't know, a retail job from 2016 to 2017, but then maybe on your resume it says something different. So make sure that it mirrors it. It's really, that's another one that happens all the time. So it is really important because consistency kind of is a little bit around integrity and authenticity, right? So that's creating an impression if you haven't got it consistent. Relevant skills connecting you to the job. Now, if anybody who hasn't visited the Employability Connect page, you need to head here. Now, this has got so many tools, tips and tricks. So, communication, critical thinking. You can click on each one of these icons inside the actual web page, and I can tell you a little bit more and give you tips and tricks of how to actually adapt some of the skills you already actually have back to putting things on resumes, and it'll give you some ideas. So highly recommend hitting this page and having a little look and learning how to best promote yourself. I stole this from the GLP team, so the Global Leadership team. They gave me this, just shows you a little bit about, presenting a resume and how to present achievement. So they've actually got it listed, as you can see, as additional experiences down there. And then they've expanded it elsewhere, so the project. So I thought that was a really great way to give you a specific example. Okay. All right, William Buck, these guys, again, Tier 2 accounting firm. Let's have a listen to Julie.
I think firstly it would be spelling and grammar. Don't rush getting it out. It is the first impression that you make that you're making with your potential new employer. So just double check it and make sure you get it right before you hit the send button. The second one that I wanted to add is, I think as a graduate, as an employer, we don't expect you to have too much relevant experience. I think putting down like if you're doing work experience or internships or courses, put the month that you started and finished, because I think, January.
Okay. All right, through the summary page. Okay, so in summary, when talent acquisition professionals or recruiters are pricing application, they don't have time. I know we're saying it again, but I think we've got to remember it. Keywords on your CV relevant to the role. I did a talk, I think it was last week, around the keywords that you pull out of a job ad to make sure that it's aligned with your application. It is recorded and online. If you didn't get a chance to see it, just jump in there and have a look. But I really did walk through some hardcore examples of, different functions that you do and have done that are matching up to what are actually listed into job ads. No busy blocks of text, so if your paragraph gets away with you, you might want to sort of revisit that and cut it down a bit and get it into bullet points and keep it a little bit more succinct. Got a good formatting, so back to white space and bullet points, organised structure, space, white space, spelling and grammar, gaps in CV, accuracy, check that phone number, make sure that email address is spot on. Achievements and your authentic self. I think that came through in every one of the chats that the team on the screen had. Okay. Just to wrap up, we're getting to the end of it.
Clear, concise, well-written resume.
Really well formatted resume. Grammar is particularly important.
No spelling and grammatical errors.
Experience and the relevancy to that work experience.
Volunteering within that field is really exciting for me to see.
Achieved. So you're talking a little bit more then about the outputs.
Sports, or it could be academics, or it could be, business related.
Less is more. So for a graduate, I think 1 to 2 pages on a resume should be completely sufficient.
Anything longer than that is a little bit too much.
Love to try and see a little bit of personality on a resume if possible. Spend a little bit of time writing about who you are, what makes you uniquely you.
I want to know a little bit more about you when you submit a resume in. We want to hire you for a culture fit as well.
So it really means that that resume has a person behind those words on that piece of paper.
So just a quick thank you to those employer partners that contributed, and currently online we have jobs on the MQSE portal, Employability Connect, for all of those roles. So if anybody is looking in any of those particular areas, I would jump on and just search on all the names of those organisations. So there's lots up there at the moment. It's very busy at the moment. Is anybody else actively applying at the moment? We know that you are actively applying. We know you are. You're done. You got placed. Actively applying at the moment, or where are you at?
Yes, I'm trying.
Yeah? Are you guys actively applying for jobs at the moment, or just trying to get your head around writing an resume? Where are you at? Get your head around writing it. Fair enough. Okay, well if you're trying to get your head around writing, I highly recommend that you scan that, the QR code. So Macquarie Student Employment, we have a couple of different facets of how we help and support you as students. One of them, obviously, we come to big chats, and we can also direct you to our career consult team, so you can have a one-on-one chat if you've got any questions that you feel you want to have that personalised service. But know the recruitment process from the employer side, so we're definitely good at helping with that. We have casual, part-time roles, full-time roles, contract roles. We support paid PACE units. So all of that is on Employability Connect. Macquarie University, with Macquarie University partners. So that why I say it like that is that these guys actually come to us and want to hire you. We're not just pushing the jobs out on Seek and going, hey, anybody out there want to do this job? These guys actually come, these employers come and they say, hey, I want to employ Macquarie students. So you're already in the door. We just got to turn around and fine-tune the application process, which is how we support you. So gain coaching and experience in tailoring cover letters, CVs and interviews. We do practice intake interviews. If you're getting an interview and you're feeling a little bit nervous, give us a call. Turn around and say, hey, can I do an intake interview or a practice interview? The best one, a whole heap of graduates at the moment would be going into graduate intake programs. I know the Arnott's one is going to start their video interviewing next week. Now, I have done some of the most awful video interviews ever. People don't turn their cameras on. They sit in dark spaces. They look like ghosts. I've seen cats hanging out of wardrobes while I was trying to interview, and I had somebody turn up with a Star Wars t-shirt for a professional interview. I can tell you all the things not to do. So come along and do a practice interview. Say, is my camera working? Check it all before. We're there to help. So become confident in what you want to offer an employer. Explore and develop your career plan with our careers team. Mentoring with the recruitment process, we'll walk you through it. That's what we do. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mel.
No worries.
Any questions?
Yep. So with these PowerPoint be uploaded to websites or or do we have access to read through again?
Do you have, sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Uploading the PowerPoint.
Oh, the PowerPoint. So it's all about, that guy over there, he's recording everything. Tyree, would you like to explain where they go and if they want to have a look at the PowerPoint again? And
Sure, so the recording will be available on Employability Connect as well as there's Employable U web page. Just in these, if you go to the students landing page from Macquarie, look under careers, you'll see Employable U. And then you can look for the thing for this week is resumes, and the recording should be there, I say, by Friday. Yeah.
So Tyree is a member of the careers team that he recently actually did an amazing, was it yesterday, Tyree, the day before?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, so he did arranged an employer partner, Fuji, to come in and do a talk, and you had 100-ish people in the room,
yeah,
and lots of questions, and yeah, it was really, really, really cool. So yeah, we're trying to do some good stuff. We're here for you guys, so yeah. Anybody else got any questions? Is it, yeah?
With regards to referees at the end, do you have a certain number that we should aim for?
Do we have a certain number that...
Like with referees that you put on your resume at the end?
Look, as I said, it's got to be a little bit, never go over 2 pages, like keep it succinct. Like it depends on what you've got to share. Seema's seen your CV and he said it was really, really good. If he says it's really, really good and I know how many he sees.
But the thing with the referees is you want to make sure you don't put in anyone's contact details on there because it's private information.
Yeah.
If you do have somebody who might be a strong referee, like in the rec report, you can put their position or their initials.
I don't normally, I just say references on applications. So in other words, if they ask me for them, I provide them. But some recruitment systems ask for them.
Yeah, general rule of thumb for the resume is you would just say referees provided upon notice.
Yeah.
But if you have someone who's a strong referee, might be a selling point for you, you can put their position title.
Yeah.
But avoid putting their personal contact information.
Just make sure you
it's just
ask
for privacy.
Before you share anyone. So the problems with data privacy is that you can't share anything without people's permission. So you really, you're better to put references as required, will be provided when required, I think, and just leave it. And then if they do ask you for it, just make sure you give those people a quick call and say, do you mind being a referee for me? So yeah,
that's what I currently have. I have provided a request.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's more enticing. Like they.
Yeah, look, and some people, you know, are not going to do most people aren't going to do the wrong thing, but unfortunately, there's some that will, you know, skim phone numbers and things. I don't know. There's bad things happening in the world. We all get those horrible spam messages. Don't you get all those funny yeah, we're all getting them. So, and where those databases come from, I don't know, but that's the reason why data privacy has just become so tight, because it's gone
also,
out of
if a
control.
recruitment agency gets that contact detail for the hiring manager, it's a potential client for them, so they might reach out to them without your permission.
Yeah.
It's best to avoid that.
No, so yeah. But if you do have any concerns about your CV, and just would like, so there's the CV 360 tool. So that also is on Employability Connect, so you can run it through like an applicant tracking system, give it a little bit of a run. It'll give you tips. So once you start your resume up the back there, that's where you're going to head to test it. Then after that, if you would like to turn around and get a bit more feedback on it and say, oh, I'm thinking about putting something on there, is that relevant to what I'm applying for? Reach out and maybe even have a careers consult with a careers advisor and you know, chat through it. That's what we're here for. Anybody else got any other questions? Anything else? No? All right. Well, it's Wednesday afternoon and I'm letting you out 20 minutes early. Awesome. Me too. Let's go. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all.